I have an idea of when we first met, but is it? I'm not sure if it's when you think we first. I don't know. I don't know. I don't have an official, but I feel like I came to see after we were filming Save the Last Dance. Julia Stiles came to do the Vagina monologues, and she was in one of the three women. And I feel like at the time she was one of the youngest women to do it because she was
She
like
definitely was. Yep.
18, 17, 18.
Yep.
And I came and saw her. I was coming for her, and I left with a new identity as an activist artist because I was like, you were great, Julia, and I love you. But this show is unbelievable. And this woman is unbelievable. And that's what I really fell in love with you and with the work.
But you were also both so brilliant, and you were so
Mm,
clearly activist and so
yeah.
visionary for your youth and such leaders. It was so clear who you were going to become, and who
Oh.
you already were.
But we
Yeah.
had this garden, right? Like V-Day was our garden to flourish in, because on our own, who knows? We really, that we were able to lock into sisterhood, Pat Mitchell, just everybody so early on.
Mhm.
So for you, when you look back and you think about these 25 years of V-Day, 25 years of this incredible global movement, what's been the role of sisterhood and solidarity in
Mm.
your victories and your challenges?
Well, I just want to say it's really because of you and sisters like you that our movement has flourished to the degree that it has, and also that just we're part of this huge chain of amazing activists and warriors who came before us, and I feel like we're part of that legacy. But I've been doing a lot of thinking about like what is 25 years, what's happened, and look, we haven't dismantled patriarchy yet, or ended violence against all women, trans, and non-binary
Mhm,
people yet,
mhm.
but we definitely have made a mark. I
Mm,
when we started, you couldn't say the word vagina, and
that's
we
right.
have ended that taboo. We have
Mm,
shifted the dialogue. We've brought this issue to the, front pages, right? It matters now, and people think about it now. We've changed laws, we've impacted traditions, and we've, I think, gotten people to really understand that you can't look at violence against women without looking at all the intersecting violences: white
mm,
supremacy,
mm,
capitalism,
mm.
climate catastrophe, imperialism, and I think that's been really important because that story of violence has deepened and broadened to bring a lot of other different issues into it and people, right?
Mm, mhm.
But I think really most importantly, what we've done is we've created gorgeous solidarity in almost every country of the world where activists give their lives to a world where women, trans, and non binary people can be safe and free and empowered. And that movement is so alive and so powerful. I mean, this season with 1 Billion Rising, we saw thousands of uprisings in 90 countries, so the movement
Mm.
is really vital.
I remember early on you saying that the goal with V-Day is to put ourselves out of business because we want to end violence against women and gender expensive people and girls and the planet. And until we end violence against everyone, then we will not have finished our job. Do you feel like the solidarity has helped you stay strong for the long haul of what your vision truly is?
I think solidarity is the key to everything. I
Mm,
think, without it, I don't know that I don't think I understood how intractable and stubborn and impossible patriarchy, and particularly racist patriarchy, was at the beginning of this whole journey. I had more faith, or maybe I was naive or idealistic, but I
mhm,
did not know how embedded and how intractable it was. And I think you keep fighting and fighting and fighting, and then suddenly you lose abortion rights, right? After 50 years. And you
mm,
think, how
mhm,
are we going to go on? And the reason is because you're embedded and enmeshed and connected with these amazing activists all around the planet who you will move in these waves of successes and pushbacks and successes and pushbacks. But the main thing is that you're in it together. And I
mm,
think until we really dismantle patriarchy, until we actually dismantle this structure, this system, this idea that there are some people at the top who
mm,
matter and have all the power
mhm.
and all the money, and that the rest of the people don't really matter at all in degrees, until we dismantle that notion, we'll be fighting violence against women forever. When you think about solidarity in your own life, Carrie, when's the first time you really felt someone was in solidarity with you? When you really hit you like, oh my God, this person's with me in this struggle, whatever the struggle was.
As somebody who has experienced sexual violence, I the aftermath of, growing up with that secret had
Mm,
me oriented toward uh, believing that the way to handle things were in isolation. I was oriented most of my life toward self-reliance as the goal.
mm-hmm,
and um, and I really remember finding a different kind of community in theater at a young age. I did some work in high school with a theater company called Star Theater out of Mount Sinai Hospital in New York at the time. And we used to do the show around HIV/AIDS education, prevention work. And so we would write these skits and perform them, and they were about self-esteem and LGBTQ plus issues and losing your virginity and coming out. We just there we were safer sex. We were exploring all these issues, but it was in that theater company where we were all making art to save lives, but coming at it
mm,
from very different perspectives. Some of us as women, some of us as queer identifying, some of us as coming from low income families, some of us coming from, I mean, just we all had our different perspectives to bring, but we were coming together to make art that could heal and save folks. And I felt like then the next place where I experienced that on a much larger level was with V Day. I mean, meeting you transformed my idea of solidarity because you seem to exist without boundaries. Like, and I mean that in so many ways. Like, you don't believe in the little lines that are, Western centric culture has drawn between countries. And you don't believe in lines between people that we don't, the divisions that separate us, of what we need in our movements right now to be
mm-hmm,
reminded
mm-hmm,
to be bringing each other in. Rather than calling each other out as much as we
mm-hmm,
do. Like, I think the accountability is incredibly important right now, but one of the greatest examples I've learned from you is that even in accountability, you can call people in. You can invite them
mm-hmm.
into awareness and into accountability and to invite people into the movement with so much of that, feminine goddess love, as opposed to taking on the culture of the patriarchy and deciding that people don't belong or are stupid or are unworthy of
Mm,
joining in this
mm.
movement for humanity.
Well, it's so interesting, Carrie, because when I think about you, and I really mean this, your life is so full of graceful love. And
Mm,
it always has been. You've
mm.
always, I always felt rough around you sometime with my opinions because I'd always be so judgmental and you'd always be like, oh my God, here she goes again. But, I remember our early days of organizing V-Day, and we would say, who do we want to invite to perform or be part of this? And people would go, oh, we can't invite her, or we won't invite her. And I would always say, let's not say that.
Mm,
Let's have a seat at the table for everyone and
mm,
assume they're eventually going to come and join us. And if they don't come this year, they'll come the next year. But
mm,
let's keep a seat for people because we know most women and trans and non-binary people are oppressed within a system that sometimes, particularly with white women, I see this, that they can't see their own oppression because they're so inside it, you
mm,
know? And how do we have empathy for that and be invitational at the same time as we hold them accountable? And
mm,
that's just something I've been thinking a lot about. If I look at my own mother, who was really irresponsible and not protecting me and not standing up for me, I realized later that she didn't have ways in her own mind to do that because she didn't
mm,
have economic resources. She didn't feel like she had a way of having a job, or she didn't have any way where to go with three kids. And it took me a long time to have empathy for her and then to be able to reach out to her to say, is there a way we can reconcile? And in
mm,
that process, I came to understand so much about her. where I had just kind of monsterized her, you know what I mean, and put her over there. So I agree with you. It's like, how do we just keep creating the spaces and the platforms and the ways for people to find their way in? Do you think there are people in your own industry now, for example, that you feel are standing up for you, in solidarity in the business in a way that wasn't true before?
People, I think, feel more empowered to be in solidarity. That
Hmm.
people are not as afraid to stand up for somebody who's other than them. Because there was, I mean, even at the beginning of my career, you could feel that two marginalized people, even from the same marginalized community, never mind across different marginalized communities, would at times be reluctant to, like I talked about with Rosario and I, right? They would be reluctant to support one another because there was that zero sum idea. So there was a
Hmm.
competition for the success or the healing or the capacity to survive and exist and be accepted and all of that. And I think in this kind of work where we uncover more truths and then stand next to, first of all, stand in our own bodies and in our own truth, and then stand alongside other folks and their truths, we make it more possible. Like when you see it, I think we've set a really powerful example for other people to say, I want to be able to
Hmm.
have my voice and stand up and stand alongside and walk with.
I think that's true.
I see it even in, our friends. I mean, that's been one of the powerful things too, is like to see even among us how as we did this work, we all became like liberated from various marriages and
Hmm.
relationships and
Yeah.
changed our names and moved to different places. And like we've all
Yeah.
been
Hmm.
evolving as well as we step into more and more of our truth. And I don't think, I know for me, I wouldn't have been able to do those things alone, that it takes the
Hmm.
solidarity of knowing that there's a community, there's a sisterhood, that there's a population, a movement that is in support of my liberation, that allows me to be liberated even in the tiny moments of my living room or my bedroom. And that's what I always try to say to, when I'm talking to this kind of new generation of young activists, the Zendayas and the Yaras, who are so incredibly powerful and courageous, and just to remind them, when you're feeling overwhelmed, and you taught me this 100%, when you're feeling overwhelmed, the number one thing to do is to plug in to solidarity, into the movement,
Totally.
not to stay in bed, right? And that's not to say that like I'm all about the nap ministry, self-care is vital, but you were the first person who really taught me, like, what might make you feel better is actually going to the march. What might make you feel better is painting the poster for the rally. What might make you feel better is making the extra phone call or coming to the day of rehearsal even though you're not in that scene. Because if you plug into the art, to the movement, to the activism and the work, suddenly you're living in the solution, and you're able to have more hope.
Well, I think all of racist capitalist patriarchy is driven towards binaries and divisions, right? It's all about
Mhm.
creating the false notion of race, the false notion of gender, the false.
Gender.
Let's go down the list. Let's just go down the
Yep.
list of all the
Yep.
binaries that were
Yep.
created. But it's also
Mhm.
about divisions and divisions and divisions, like divisions within divisions, and teaching people how to keep dividing and keep dividing and keep getting into more silos and more silos. And I think the greatest tool we have is solidarity, because solidarity, I'm working on this musical right now about climate change, and I'm having such an amazing time doing it. It's the hardest thing I've ever done, but
Mm.
I'm loving it so much. And one of
Mm.
the things I was working on this week was, the lead young woman, is a person who just feels everything so intensely. Like, she's a highly sensitive person, right? And she's learning all through the play how to begin to direct her feelings to bring
Mm.
about something transformative rather than
Mm.
getting overwhelmed by them, right?
Mm.
But one of the things is, she's in the forest, and that's her go-to place. But she's never understood that she is the forest, right? She's
Mm.
understood that the
Mm.
forest helps her, and that finally this very wise woman comes and says, like, you are this forest. You're not separated from this forest. You are. And the minute she
Mm.
understands that, she gets her power. And I feel that with solidarity, like we are
Mm,
each other. It's not you're over there and I'm here. No, no, we are each other. Like your well-being, your improvement, your evolution, your good feeling is my evolution. And that's fact. That's not I'm not like making that up. That's real. And I think
mm.
that is the thing, that is the greatest superpower we have.
Catalyst.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
is to know that we can't be shot apart. We are in this with each other, and that means sometimes you have to take risks that forfeit your success. You know, if you
Mm-hmm.
decide that you're going to stand up for Palestinians, it may mean that you have to take what comes with that, you know, as a Jewish
Mm.
person. If you're going to stand up and you're going to speak out against anything for people who you love, who you are, it's going to be something that may disrupt your own life, but you have no idea where that will take you. It will take you someplace
Mm.
amazing, that disruption. It will bring you
Mm.
to a whole new consciousness. And pray for the disruptions, right? The disruptions
Mm.
are the best things in the world. And it's what most Americans guard most, you know, so intensely against, right?
This is so good. How do we make solidarity less frightening for people?
Mm,
How can we
mm.
do that? Because I love what you said. It's so true. You have always left the seat open. Like, we're inviting you in. It's here for you. If not this year, the next year. But how do we encourage, um, seduce more
Mhm.
solidarity? Make people know that that they're welcome.
I think that's a critical factor, and part of it is listening to people. It's
Mm,
not just going at them, you know, it's
mm,
not just making decisions about who people are before you meet them. You
mm.
know, it's trying to understand where people's pain is, you know. Before this last book, Reckoning, I wrote the apology, which was
Yeah.
I wrote my father's apology to me for abusing me sexually and physically. And it was a really, really hard thing to do. Because to be honest with you, I didn't really want to know my father and I didn't want to have empathy for my father and I didn't want to understand my father. And it kept me absolutely connected to his narrative, right? I was always
Mm.
at my father. But
Right,
doing that
right.
book was so profound because I began to understand my father, not to justify his behavior, but understand the roots of it, where it came from,
Mm.
what made him into the man he was, both in his family, in the culture. And by doing that, I began to be able to loosen his grip upon me
Mm.
because I realized it was about him. It wasn't about me. It was about patriarchy. It wasn't about me, right? And I think sometimes, like, if we can listen to people's stories, we
Mm.
can find ways in to find our points of solidarity, to find our points of
Mm.
similarity, to find where that person and you come together so that you can begin to say, oh, well, if that's true, then how would we move in another direction, you know? How would we
Mm.
take this information and move together in another direction? I think that's another aspect of solidarity, which is everybody is good at their thing and
Mm.
everything is needed. And
Yes.
we live in this structure where we value some more than others, and we
Mm.
think some people matter and other people don't. And that is absolutely untrue. Because the truth
Yeah.
of the matter is, if we didn't learn that for COVID, for
Mm.
God's sakes, who are the people who kept us alive? Right? The people
Mhm.
we don't see, we don't pay, we don't value, we don't organize around. Those were
That's
the
right.
people who kept us alive. Those were the
That's
most
right.
important people.
That's
So
right.
part of it is like, how do we create a world where we all have value and equal value?
Mm.
And that solidarity is, it's so amazing when you're the person who creates the song for the rally, and you're the person who brings everybody together and creates the roadmap of the march. Like every single thing is critical. What do you dream right now? Like when we talk about like stopping this conversation, like what's your dream for where this country is right now? What are you seeing?
When I think about my dream for this country, I really think about us living up to those first three words of our Constitution, we the people, and being a place where, as you pointed out earlier, everyone really matters. that everybody's voice counts, like a real democracy, a real functioning democracy, a place where people know that they are of value and they are actually valued in their lives, where people are compensated for the work they do in equitable ways, where people feel safe to love and to flourish, and to live out loud and to tell the truth and to be their truth. Like that's the world I want for my kids. A world
Mm.
where
Mm.
you are able to actually, where they can actually be who they are, be safe as who they are, have their needs met, their basic human needs met, and feel capable of taking risks in the service of creation and humanity and goodness and truth.
Yeah.
Um,
Beautiful.
that's what I
Beautiful.
want. What about you? What's your dream?
I want patriarchy and racism to end. I want us to move into a world where we honor women and trans and non-binary and gender fluid diverse people, and we actually bless them for pushing us to evolve to new consciousness. I want to live where
Mm,
the majority of people have the wealth and they live well and they live with health care and they live with homes and they live with clean air and clean water, and their children are educated and they're not afraid to go to school because there's not 400 million
mm,
guns,
mm-hmm,
and where violence isn't the core of our society in this
mm,
country, but where love and care and connection, and we would never see a homeless person on the street because that
mm.
homeless person or unhoused person would be taken care of, and mentally people who suffer from mental illness would be cherished and cared and loved upon and lifted so they didn't feel that they had to take their own lives. And
Yes.
we would create environments where children would bullying would be impossible because
Mm-hmm.
everybody would be valued for their profound particularities, and differences, and we wouldn't
Mm.
blend into one homogenized same, but we'd all be our very particular, diverse, interesting, selves, and we'd be loved for it, right? And we
Yes.
wouldn't be pushed to be the same.
Oh, I
And there'd be no more
love
nuclear
that.
weapons. Nuclear
Yes.
weapons would be gone. We wouldn't be living under their shadow. I just think all these things are possible if we just made a commitment to say we won't spend trillions of dollars on bombs, but we'll spend it on people. Let's make
That's
that
right.
decision,
And on
you know?
children in particular, now
Yes.
now, being a mom now, it's like, oh, I really, when I see evil, I think in my kinder moments, I think, what happened to you? What
Yeah.
happened to you?
Yeah.
Because I really see how hurt people, and how we have the capacity to heal all of our cultural issues if we can address each child being loved for who they are and
Yeah.
being taught that who they are is okay and that everybody around them is okay too. That kind of self acceptance and communal acceptance. If we could get there, so much of the devastating inequity and violence around us would disappear.
I
Hmm.
think you only have to make someone less than you if you feel less than. And
That's right.
and it's like and we are living in a country that is just soaked in trauma. It's just
Mm,
soaked so that one little match, right, it just
mm,
ignites it. How
hmm.
do we relieve trauma? What if we took our country and said we're going to take all our attention on dismantling patriarchy, ending hate, and cleaning out the trauma? That's all we're going to do. That's all we're going to do. We would be living in such an amazing place,
It's
you
interesting
know?
because all of this vision, for both of us, what we're envisioning is really a world where solidarity is at the core of our being
Oh,
because we are truly looking out for one another, right? Like we're invested in healing, not for our own personal benefit or the benefit of our own child, but for the benefit of this entire planet, like the planet itself and everybody on it. That like global idea of solidarity is so core. And it means there's
so
so
core.
many, the good news, The good news is that there's so much wrong that there's so many ways to do good. Like
Yeah,
there are
it's so
so many
true.
ways to be part of the solution. There are so many ways to enter in with whatever your superpower is, your skill is, whether it's baking cookies or singing songs or writing or driving or folding envelopes or sending emails or making phone calls, like whatever it is that you can do, whether it's write a check or take somebody for a walk, there's a way to step into solidarity of the movement of making this world a better place. You can, no matter who you are, no matter what you have.
Totally. Totally. Well, I just want to say to you, having known you for a long time, you make
A
the world
long
better
time.
every single day. And you do it with such beauty and such talent and such grace and such love. And I love you so much. And I feel so honored, privileged, grateful for all our years together in this movement, in this incredibly evolving story of new consciousness that we're trying to bring into this world.
Oh, I feel the same way, and I am because of you. I really am,
Mhm.
Eve. Like, you're so core to who I've become in my life. I'm so, so grateful for how you've um, really taught me to love this planet more, to love women and um, gender non binary folks, and to love this movement and to love myself. So I'm really grateful.